Hey, welcome to the Travel Winds podcast. Today, my guest is Dr. Larissa Rector. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I was going to try and introduce you as, assistant principal, professor, but then you throw on a whole bunch of other things.
I mean, yeah, I guess I did right before we got started. I do wear a lot of hats. So I am an assistant principal at a primary school, and then I do adjunct professor work. Um, I have a nonprofit where we do books and pajamas for kids that are in hospitals across Tennessee. And then I also own a cleaning business that's kind of on the side as well. I have a couple of, people that work for me. We do like Airbnb, stuff like
Okay.
that. So single mom, two kids. We're just super busy.
And a dog.
And a dog. Yes, tiny dog.
We can't forget the dogs. So, other than that, you got nothing going on.
No, other than that, no,
Yeah.
nothing at all. Except podcasts, right?
Yeah. Spare time for podcasting.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of cool because, I mean, you're a doctor, you got your PhD, you're a professor, but Prince, I mean, when does it become Larissa's time? You're given quite a bit.
That's a good question. It's a good question. It's all about balance, which we all know that. But I feel like balance looks different at every point of your life. So still, right when I think I have it figured out, something else is thrown into the mix, or, one of the girls is at an age where they require more time, more energy, maybe something they're in, or, and so it kind of varies. But right now, most of my time's just work and and my kids, but both things I'm really passionate about, so I feel like that is me time, if that makes sense.
How important is scheduling for you?
Very important, very important. I try to schedule things, even podcasts and stuff like this, way ahead of time. I have my full-time job where I do the assistant principal role, and of course that takes up the
That's a
majority of the
job, yeah.
week, of the year. And so podcasts, of course, I would do in the evening. Traveling, if it's for work, it would be during the week. I'd just be out for a couple of days. If it's for something else, one of the other businesses, try to do it on the weekends or, summer break when we have time to do that, spring break, fall break.
I
So
remember those days.
yeah, yeah. So it's, trying to fit it in wherever I can. And then the kids are in a lot of stuff, for themselves as well. So trying to schedule around that. I try not to miss any of their things. I have finally had to let go of some of that mom guilt, the last couple of years, because sometimes there's something I might not can go to, but most of the things I'm there for. So if I don't have everything scheduled out, I just can't fit everything in. And it
Yeah.
also tells me when I need to say no, when I'm
I was
starting to
going to
look.
say that's got to be a big part of it too, though, right? At some point, you got to go, all right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess that's what I'm very passionate about the nonprofit too. But my daughters and I established it ourselves a couple of years ago. And that's something that if we're super busy, it can just kind of wait a little while. We have our busiest times, which is around the holidays.
Yeah.
But besides that, it's, if I need to step away from it for a couple of weeks, I can. And then if I have some downtime, I can do a fundraiser, try to raise some money, put some more time and energy into it.
Uh, how are your daughters when you started the nonprofit?
How old were they?
How no, how were they? I mean,
How
were they
were
like,
they?
this is
Well,
cool, or was it like, oh, it's more work?
and it kind of goes along with me saying how old were they because they're both girls, and so that says a lot. Right now they're 10 and 17, so they were right about 7 and 14.
Yeah.
So I say that to say the 14-year-old was kind of like,
Whatever.
whatever. Like she wasn't really interested. Like sometimes she wants to help, sometimes she doesn't, and she's kind of stayed the same the last couple years that we've done it. Now my little one, so she was probably about 7. She's also my super helper, and she wants to be involved with everything. So from the get-go, she was all, what can I do? What can I do to help? Can I go? Can I see the kids? So, but she's definitely more of the nurturing one. And then my oldest is more of the even more of the business mind. I mean, she's kind of good to come sometimes and say, "Have you tried to do this?" Or we could do this to promote it. And, like I'll send her out even for advertising now that she can drive. So that's kind of how she plays, her role and helps a little bit. But they both really help around Christmas time when we get really busy. Um, and they help me make deliveries and stuff like that. So I,
That's
I
nice.
think it's good for them. I mean,
Even if they don't realize it.
yeah, even if they don't realize it.
So I had heard this, and I have two daughters. What I had heard because I think it was like that 13, 14, 15, where it was just like, Dad, you don't know jack squat.
Oh, yeah.
So I had heard boys are a nightmare till they hit puberty, and then they kind of cool off because now they want to look cool.
Right.
Girls are cute little princesses until they hit puberty, and then it's
Right, right.
roles completely reverse. And I found that to be
Yeah.
pretty true.
It is pretty true, which we haven't, my little one still being 10.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I don't know what is to come, but my oldest one has always been strong-willed. So, I mean, yes, she was cute. She was the cute little princess, but I wouldn't say she was ever cute. I mean, she's always been, very independent, stubborn, strong-willed, from the get-go.
That's like my older one's kind of the same, more so than the younger one. But now my older one just started her own little clean up the beach community thing.
See, I could see my oldest doing something like that as well.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so
She definitely has that entrepreneurial spirit.
yeah,
I mean, she's always been that way. She's wanting to go to vet school like their older sister. And she might. And if she does, I know she'll do really well. But I just see her, doing more things on her own, creating more things, being more of an entrepreneur. But we'll see how that works out. What do moms know, right? What do
Right.
parents know?
I think it's interesting because I'm trying to remember back, like the principals were always like, the principals.
Yeah.
They weren't real people; they were principals because they weren't teachers. You didn't see them every day.
Right.
They weren't, right? I mean, how often do you,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's really changed. It's really changed.
oh, has it? Because I mean, remember in high school, I couldn't tell you my VP
Right?
at,
Right?
at all.
Yeah.
But my principal, I mean, I saw him at football games, at rallies.
Like you knew his face.
Yeah, yeah. If you walk by, like, oh, there's Principal Nord.
It's probably good that you didn't know them well. That's a good sign.
Is that part of the disciplinary
Yes,
thing?
yeah.
Yeah. I had that at home. I didn't need that at school.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I think the face of, well, I mean, all the way around education, it's changed a lot since you and I were in school. Um, but we really are present. And I'm sure it's like that pretty much everywhere. I mean, our role is not just disciplinarian anymore. Like we are full in the teachers' classrooms, looking at what they're doing,
Wow.
offering help, assistance, guidance. So we're really diving into like those instructional practices so that we can, help the teachers. So yeah, we're very visible. I would say we're in our offices, um, very little.
I don't remember. Yeah. And it was
Yeah,
quite a while ago, but I still like even like my middle school. I
yeah, yeah.
never in my life did I meet.
And I hate to say that I never saw my principals, but I mean, I'm like you. I wasn't in trouble, so that's good.
Yeah.
But I don't remember seeing them. Like they didn't hang out in our classrooms. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I feel like it looked different, whether they were in their office or somewhere else. I don't know. But I do know that they dealt with discipline and, kind of
Oh,
stayed in their own lane. And I feel like now we're just kind of a little bit of everything. Um,
the computer portals is a whole different world. When my
yes.
girls were in high school, they had just started it, and I was like, "Oh, I get to see when your homework's due and
Right?
when your
Right?
test." Oh God, I would have hated that.
I was gonna say I mean I was a good student, but so my parents probably wouldn't have had a hard time. Now my sister, now she was probably more of a procrastinator, so that would have driven them crazy. But my kids, yeah, I'm sure they're not a big fan of
Man, that would
the
still hurt.
online systems that we use because the communication, man, it's on.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I get every notification they're tardy for school or don't show up for class. And in high school, it's not just once. I mean, it's every single period.
yeah, yeah.
we get a notification. And as soon as those grades, if something's, not been turned in and it's a zero, you better believe I'm sending a text. Why didn't you turn this in? And so Brashay, my oldest, she's gotten real good at sending me a text first. Now, you're about to get a notification. And I'm just telling you, I did that. She
I
just hasn't
like her.
graded it yet. I don't know
I,
how many times I've heard she hasn't graded it yet or
I
he
love
hasn't
that.
graded it yet.
That would have been me.
It's hard to know when that's the truth. I'm sure sometimes it is. But I also try to not be that parent that like super bugs the teachers so
Yeah.
that I'm not always emailing to say, did she turn this in? Especially she's 17 now. So got to let her take a little bit more ownership and, try to step back and take her word for it. So, but
That's how my dad, I mean, I remember my dad was like, I'm not talking to your teachers. I'm not talking to your coach. You
yeah,
know, you're, if you can drive a car, you can talk to your teacher about what you need to get done.
yeah, yeah.
Don't come crying to me. I'm like,
That's how my parents were with us. And I just feel like, and I feel like that's lacking a little bit with, the generation now with the kids. And so I've really pushed mine to try to, you know, advocate more for themselves and speak up for themselves, try to take care of situations. Now, I do step in if I have to,
as,
if they tried. And
as an administrator and someone that's in the education business, because it's a business. How do you talk to your girls about social media and the phones? My daughters were literally the last two of their class to get phones. Because I'm not giving you a $500 phone. Are you crazy? I don't have a $500 phone.
right?
But
Um,
I told them when they were in high school, the biggest punishment I could give them, give me your phone.
oh, 100%.
And they're like, what?
So
Well,
I have a funny story about that, and this actually was not my kid, but it's a funny story. So a friend of mine, he had a daughter, and she got in trouble for something, and it was pretty serious. And I think she was probably about 17. And so he and his wife, got in front of her and said, "Okay, like you're in trouble, and we're gonna let you help with the punishment. And so, would you like to lose your car or your cell phone?" And she said, "My car."
Oh my God.
And he said, "Okay, hand me your cell phone." So it was a trick. I mean, he
Yeah,
literally
yeah.
took what would be, the most important thing to her. But she picked losing her car over her cell phone. And I just think back to being 16, 17, and it was a different world, and we were just getting cell phones and stuff. But I never would have picked
Never.
my cell phone over my car. I mean, I would want to be able to leave, but I think they feel more burdened if they don't have access to that phone, more so than actually leaving the house, which blows my mind.
Yeah.
Uh,
And that's what I mean. It's like I told my girls, I go, I would have hated having this
oh,
leash
oh
when I
yeah.
was in high school, for one. Forget middle school.
I mean, and my kids, I mean,
Sure.
they have Life 360 on their phones. I know everywhere they're at.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
how their speed that they're going. I can call them, say, slow down.
Ah, man, like I said, the rule in my house was I turned 16. I had a 62 Ford convertible. It was a beater car.
Mhm,
But my dad said, if you get a ticket, it's gone.
mhm,
I don't care what it's for. So we're leaving. I just turned 16. It was like 2 months later. I was a junior in high school. The two biggest guys, seniors, wanted to go to lunch with me in between 2 days at football practice. And they sat, so I put the top down. We were literally just going around the corner from the high school, but they wanted to go in my car. I'm like, all right, which was cool for me because I got
yeah.
two biggest guys on that team. I was like,
Yeah.
all
No
right.
time. Yeah.
So they sit up on the trunk as I'm going down the street on school property, and they're doing the parade wave. There's no one around. It's summertime.
Yeah.
They're just being 17 years old. A
The pro.
cop, a cop drives down the main street and looks down the school street and sees them sitting up on the trunk.
Doing the parade wave.
Comes back, gives me a ticket.
Oh no.
I walk in. I go, here's the keys, and here's the ticket.
Yeah. No questions.
That was done.
How long did you lose your vehicle for?
I got. I was very fortunate because those two guys who I didn't know. I mean, like I had just met them because I
Oh,
had
okay.
just moved to the school, and so they felt terrible. Because they're like, where's your car? I go, dude, I don't have it anymore. I got a ticket. They're like, yeah, but it wasn't your fault. And I go, don't matter. They
Yeah.
went to my house and apologized to my dad.
Oh,
And he said, well, I appreciate you guys coming over. It means a lot. That he told me the true story, but he knows the rules, and we'll have to wait and see him when he gets the car back. So I had to walk miles, like literally
yeah.
like 3 miles after practice to get home for about,
Wow.
I think it was like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And he goes, here's your keys. Be careful. Another ticket. You lose it again.
Yeah. Did you get any more tickets?
No,
No.
I got one little car accident where I didn't brake, but he didn't take it from me on that one. I explained it to him.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, no tickets.
I did have a lot of wrecks when I was 16. Yeah, I think I had three cars by the time I was 18. None of them technically my fault, but they probably were all my fault.
Technically, yeah.
Didn't really know how to drive, probably braking too late, that kind of stuff.
That's
So,
that's what I was interested to talk to you because as an educator, like you've been through it all. You were a child, you were a high schooler, you were a teenager, you went to college. You know a lot of the scams, the stories, the white lies. It's got to be interesting as a at school, and you're like, I know you're lying.
it's
Way to
very
prove it.
at school and at home. I mean, I told my oldest about a year ago. I said, I'm hoping you don't underestimate my ability to know, one, when you're lying, two, when you're keeping something from me, and sure enough, the first time she called me saying, "Oh, Mom, you can stay at school a little longer. Yeah, you don't have to rush home. I'm good." I'm like,
I need to rush home.
oh, like something's up. Yeah, yeah.
I'm on
Like,
my way.
I mean, as soon as I walked in at home and she had friends over, she wasn't supposed to have over. I was like, I said, you have underestimated me and I overestimated you because I really thought that you had more sense than that. So one, kids don't know how to lie.
Yeah,
It's actually kind of humorous. But one of my favorite things to do, I used to be an administrator in middle school, and I didn't do this at first, but when I realized that they would start telling on themselves for things
yeah.
before I even started talking, I would just sit back. It's like as
Let him
soon as
go.
they came to my office, I'd be like, "Well, why do I have you in here?" And the things that they would tell me
Yeah.
was like I would just have to try not to laugh because they would tell on themselves for so many things that would
Now
had nothing to do
that's
with
the
what I
that's
had them in there.
the movie you need to write right there.
Right? Oh, it was so funny. And I'm trying not to laugh. But I think one time, a little girl, probably fifth, sixth grade, she actually said what I had her in there for. Every other time, unless it was something they caught red-handed,
Yeah.
um, it was something else that they were telling on themselves for. So I'd have to say, okay, well, we're going to get back to that. But first, I need to talk to you about this. Um,
I remember when the girls were in high school and all that, and they played lacrosse, they played soccer, and did all that. And it was like I'd pick up their friends or whatever. Oh, so Mr. Pete, what are you going to do for spring break? I go, I don't get spring break. I'm going to work.
right?
Like, you know, what are you doing for winter break? Working.
Working. What are
Did
you
you have
doing
a
for
good
summer
summer
break?
break? I'm like, no, I had a good summer.
Right?
It's just,
It's funny. They think everybody's on their schedule, and that's actually though why I went into education. So education was not something I just automatically wanted to do, like some people do. Growing up, I did grow up in a small town, but I love television. I love film. I love writing. So I like just watching stories play out, and so I always wanted to be a director, screenwriter, director, something along those lines. So my first degree is actually in film. So I have a degree in video and film production, and I started college early. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. Play those little kid germs. But I started about 17. So I was done the first time at 2021, and I spent about 4 years working with different companies. I did news for a little while. I think I did news three or four times. I kept going back, and I worked for some production companies. I worked for Scripps Networks, that does a lot of shows for HGTV. So I love stuff like that. But you work all year round.
Yep.
But I ended up getting married and getting pregnant with my oldest daughter and was not planning on having a kid at that time. And she was just kind of like, surprise. And so I really had to reevaluate because I was traveling a lot for that job. I was working for HGTV at that time. And I just thought, as a mom, I can't really be gone a lot. Didn't want to leave her at home with her dad a lot. So I was like, what can I do
Yeah.
that would be kind of similar. And so I thought about going into radio, did that very temporarily, and it was not the same for me. And so I was like, well, I could go into education and have the same schedule she does once she starts school.
Sure.
And so literally, which I love kids. I mean, I've always, worked with kids and loved kids, but that was really my major decision for switching careers was having that same schedule. Even if there's snow days,
Yeah.
last minute, school's called off, I'm off also. I don't have to call a babysitter. And so that's why I went into education, but I ended up loving it. Initially, I thought, well, I'll have summers off and I'll do film work in the summers.
Yeah, that
And
didn't
I
happen.
did that for a couple years. I did it until I guess my oldest was probably 5, 6. I would kind of dabble. I didn't do a lot, but I
Yeah.
would do things. We had a show shot in Nashville called The Nashville Show years ago, so I went and helped on that some.
Okay.
Once I had my youngest daughter too, I was just super busy. We also owned businesses. We owned a roller skating rink and a guttering and siding business. And we were just covered up. So I kind of got out of that. But full circle, what's really funny is I am not an actress. So you do not want to put me in front of the camera. I'm kind of like Chandler on Friends. I freeze up, make weird faces probably. But my oldest is an actress and she's done theater her whole life, loves it. But being a high schooler, drama club wasn't as cool. She didn't want
Yeah.
to do plays as much. And so she started doing some commercial work and some like small film projects around like Nashville area, which, isn't too far from us. And so it's really neat when I get to go to set with her because it just kind of,
Yeah.
feels full circle being back in it and um, kind of being on both sides of it. It's neat.
See, I'm just saying, this podcast is the most extroverted thing I do.
Is
So
it?
I don't like, even at the rodeo and stuff, they'll have me wanting to do things like, no, no.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of how I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I have to talk or, I mean, I am in some leadership roles where I have to
If
be in
that's
front
it.
of people and stuff like that. But if I had my choice, I just kind of sit back and listen.
So
Um,
how would you feel if they had a camera on you at all the times you had to?
oh, I probably sound completely dumb.
Yeah,
I think all of my knowledge would be out the window. Yeah, so they would have to not tell me the camera was on me, probably.
exactly. That's what. So, Cowboy Troy,
Hmm.
who plays with Big and Rich,
Yep.
I've known him for, God, coming up on 15 years now, and
Yes, I've watched them before.
yeah, and so we sponsor Troy with the company I work for. So I've known. I mean, I've like, I can call him,
Mhm.
and when he comes into it, he does a lot of the social media stuff when he comes into the booth and all that. Hey, Pete, come on over. Let's talk. And I'm like, I don't want to do that, Troy. Like, I just want to stand here and sell. Like, I don't want to
Right,
go on
right.
that camera and do all that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I get in my social moods. I mean, I do like talking to people. I just
Yeah.
find people interesting.
Oh, I know.
But
I love talking to people. I just,
right. But if I'm put on the spot, and like I'm in front of tons of people, that's different. But I do like socializing on a smaller level.
yeah.
Uh, as long as I'm not being filmed.
Like you are right now.
Like I am right now. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah. Yeah. I always tell people my first probably 150 shows weren't video. And
Okay.
I had a guest that said she would only do that if it was on video because she liked seeing who she was being interviewed by.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
That's what made me also like, okay, I need a camera, I need lights, I need
Right, right. See, all that cinematography.
all the extra stuff.
Yeah. I do have a microphone and stuff. It just wasn't working tonight. So,
That's
but
fine.
lighting, I kind of I remember a little bit from lighting courses. So, but we still just have overhead lights and
Well, like I contemplated, so I could do the ring light, but then now I can't see you as well. So I'm like, I'd rather, that's to me, it's more important. But when I do this, like I have to light up higher and I have to do different
Right.
things and all the stupid stuff you never think about
Right.
the way it is. So what are the negatives of being in the school system? And, being an administrator and doing that. I mean, you talk a lot about the schedules with the kids and that.
Yeah.
What do you think are the negatives?
Well, yeah, because I mean, obviously there are lots of positives, but
Yeah.
there are negatives to everything. One of the negatives is probably, well, I could go a lot of different directions with that. One is, you know how if you are, okay, I'll use my parents for example. They own a stone business. They've done rock work their whole lives. My dad does a lot of work like Knoxville area, some big neighborhoods and stuff in Tennessee, and really good at what he does. But my mom and dad had built a house several years ago. My mom wanted a stone, not driveway, like walkway from like their house to the driveway across the front of the house. And I think they've been there, I don't know exactly, I mean, years. And it just now got finished because my dad's like, I do that all day. I don't want to come home and lay more rock, and or even, have it done because he's just so burnt out by the time he gets home. So that's one thing is, I have some friends that don't work in education and they're like, oh, I bet your kids when they come home, you are like buckling down and you're reading books with them and you're doing all this extra stuff. And I'm like, no, I'm really not. And so sometimes I kind of feel bad for that because you just get so tired. Being in administration, it's a little different than when I was actually teaching. But when I was actually teaching and teaching all day, and I would come home and, can you help me with my homework? I'd be like, can we wait a few hours?
Yeah.
At least. And so just kind of that's kind of a downside of it because it takes that away from them, I feel like.
I think that's true. I mean, it's like if you like golf, I got really into golf for a while, and I asked some friends, "Go, oh, you should go pro, and you should do." I'm like, no, because
Takes,
I asked a professional golfer. I said, "What's the difference between a good amateur and a pro?"
Mhm.
He goes, "About 1,000 shots a day difference."
Yeah,
I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Go." He goes, "For me, I need to know what my 6 iron does, so I'm only bringing my 6 iron.
right,
I hit a
right,
1,000 balls." Because I need to know how it feels when I'm fresh, when I'm warmed up, and then when I'm getting tired.
right.
And the next day I'll come in and hit a 7 iron.
And I feel like eventually it just takes some fun out of it.
Takes the fun out of it.
Yeah, yeah. You don't
Yeah.
appreciate it as much, and yeah. So that's definitely one downside, and I think another negative is just being in the system, and obviously your kids are going to go to school in the same school system if you're,
Yeah.
being as a teacher or administrator, and it's hard. Like I don't ever want to overstep. I
Right.
don't, yeah, I don't want to be that parent. I try to leave teachers alone. I've been a teacher. I taught in the classroom for probably 14 years, maybe something like that, 14, 15. And so I just don't want to overburden teachers or
Yeah.
ask them too many questions, email them too much, call them too much, that kind of thing. So I try to just kind of stand back and let them do their thing. But it is hard when you do have something you need to address or say, just approaching it in the right way. And then, just because of my role, just being very careful with how I tackle certain situations when it comes to the kids.
Yeah.
So luckily, I haven't had to do that a whole lot. But with my younger, she is dyslexic, and so there has been times I've had to, step in and advocate for her to make sure she has everything that she needs. And so it's tricky.
But you can have parent teacher conferences every day.
Right, right. Well, they're not either one at a school that I'm at.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
Yeah, so we're at three different schools. And so there's only been once, I think, ever that we were all three in the same school for a year.
That'd be cool, but not cool all at the same time.
Yeah, it was easy transitioning. It was
Well, just
easy
I'm
getting to
thinking
work
logistics,
and
dropping off.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Yeah, so that was nice. And it was just because my kids are so far apart in age.
yeah.
There was an elementary school and a middle school that's connected.
Oh, I got you.
And so I had one in early elementary, like she was like pre-K kindergarten, and then I had a middle schooler and I was teaching middle school. And so yeah, that's the only time.
So one thing we talked a little bit before was, and I didn't know this, was you have to go on conference, you have to do continuing education, and you have to pay for that. Like,
Yeah, it depends. It depends on what it is. And I think we've talked about this before. So if it's something for the school system that they want you to go to, then obviously they would pay for it.
yeah,
Um, I am so interested in so many different areas, and literacy is what my PhD was in, literacy and research. So if there's anything even reading literacy based that's even kind of outside of the box that I'm really, wanting to go do, then that's different. Which my school system's been great. If I let them know that there's something I really want to do, they have paid for it in the past. But at other times, I've either paid for it myself
yeah.
or there's grants that you can write for certain conferences.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, there's a literacy conference that we do in Tennessee, and they actually do have a grant that you can write each year to get up to like $400. I actually saw that come through my email today. And so that obviously, if you get that grant, would pay for the conference and hotel room. So, and even then, it's not always like everything you need, but it helps. So if I can't find avenues like that, then I would just pay for it myself.
Okay. We talked before. I don't want to talk politics. I am curious. I, I'm curious all the things that are potentially coming up, like him getting rid of the Department of Education and some of the, I mean, I never even thought about it. It's like, it's not a say. Is that something y'all talk about? I don't want to know what you say, but it is
We
people
don't
talking
a
about it.
lot, and we have some, but we don't a lot. And I honestly think it's because we don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's like if we'd been there before and then we weren't, and now we're going back, I'm sure we'd have all kinds of things to say. But for me personally, I don't know what it's going to look like. I mean, it's scary.
I only
Um,
brought it up because you mentioned the grants. So I started thinking, well,
yeah.
the grants aren't there anymore.
I know. I don't know what the education system is going to look like. I know that there's a lot more across our state looking at more magnet schools,
Yeah.
um, lottery type things, and I also don't know what that will look like. I grew up in a very small town, and so I don't even know that we had private school. I really don't think we did. We had very few kids that were like homeschooled. So
Yeah.
everybody just went to public school. That's just what you did. I think that was pretty much across the nation, but for us, specifically, it definitely was. And then my kids have always been in public school,
Yeah.
and I've taught public school. Now, I've had opportunities to go to private schools, but even when I taught at the university level, it was a public university. My heart is with those kids. Like I love private schools too, but I love helping kids that might not have the help outside of school, that might struggle, but for, various reasons. That's just kind of where my heart lies. So I am very much, an advocate for public schools, and I don't know how that's going to change, even the demographics of what the schools are made up of if we do more
Yeah.
lottery stuff and, bring in more magnet schools and stuff like that. And then if the funding's not there, we have a lot of after school programs that help, especially like our
But
underprivileged
are some of
kids.
those state versus federal funds?
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean,
And I think our after school program, that's one of the main things. I'm wondering what that will even look like next year. Like, will the funding be there for that, for these kids that need that extra homework help, that extra time with teachers? It's 2 hours extra every day that parents aren't having to pay for.
well, I can tell you, the tariffs were a big talk. I was just in Dallas for a week long, and 90% of what we bring in is from China or Mexico. All the cowboy boots that you see,
Right.
90% are made in Mexico.
Okay.
If
Okay.
they're going to slap a 50 or 25% tariff,
Right.
it's going to affect everything coming in. And almost all the shirts are, well, not all, a lot of the shirts are made in China. The jeans, most of the jeans are made in China.
Right. Well, this is a whole nother conversation you and I have to have after podcast then.
Yeah, well,
Actually, am thinking of, with all this extra time I have, I'm starting another branch of the nonprofit where I'm writing some children's books that I haven't published yet. But when I do get them published, I wanted to use them with the nonprofit, to give to kids so that some of our
yeah,
own products are being used. And then I thought, well, if I'm doing that, why am I not creating my own pajamas? And so I actually have a pajama line that I'm wanting to launch, but I'm still looking at, like you said, like manufacturers and kind of, looking at different prices and companies and ratings and all that stuff. And it's just a lot, especially right now with the uncertainty of what that looks like.
You might be better. There might be some good plants for you in North Carolina.
Interesting.
There's a lot. There's still a lot of manufacturing going on in North Carolina.
Yeah,
Leggings, stockings, belts, leather.
right. Yeah. So,
That's close for you.
right.
But
So
yeah, I
yeah,
mean, that's
a lot of
something we're all
things.
talking about. Because we don't know. I mean, I'm out selling fall right now, so I'll be selling August, September, and October goods. Well, I have to sell. Let's say the shirt sells for $50 in a store. I sell to a store for 25
Right.
because it costs us 10. Well, if the tariffs go in and act in 6 months at 50%, well, I've already pre-sold everything. So now, do I raise the price thinking it
Right.
might go up,
Yeah, that's tricky.
or do I take the chance that he's not going to raise the tariffs too much, and then
Yeah. I feel like that's where a lot of
just
school systems,
uncertainty.
yeah, are gonna be this summer. I mean, or now going into summer, but looking at next school year. Because I mean, budgeting is your biggest thing.
Oh yeah, way out in advance.
Yeah. So if you don't know what money you have coming in,
How do
you're
you know
not,
what you can
you
spend?
know what to allocate for. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, maybe we can have another podcast conversation. Those changes start taking place because
Yeah.
I'm a little worried about it. I'm trying to find some positive in it, and I don't know.
Well, I mean, everyone always when I go to the rodeo, where are your boots made? They're made in Mexico, Leon, Mexico. They're all made in one city, Leon. Dan Post. I mean, they're all in one city.
Yeah,
Why don't you make stuff over here? And I go, because you couldn't afford it.
right.
You couldn't afford. Do you know what they pay for labor in India and Pakistan, Bangladesh?
A lot less than we do.
It's like a quarter an hour in Bangladesh.
Oh, wow.
So it's $2 a day.
Wow. I mean,
In
I was going to shoot low, but not that low.
in Laos, in the country of Laos, the apparel workers went on strike because they wanted to get more money. I think it's a different situation. They were like $1 an hour, right? Do you know how they stopped the strike?
How?
The Laos government sent in the military as the people were marching down the street and started shooting
Oh, wow.
protesters and
So
said, "Get back to fucking work."
I was going to say, like, nope, sorry, not an option. No raises.
No, 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 you're not getting more money and you're going back to work
Yeah.
or we'll
Yeah.
keep shooting. And they literally shot people.
Wow.
But, are we willing to do that here? I,
Probably not. Probably
every
not.
worker that, would want to be in a union
Yeah.
and you get $20 an hour plus benefits, plus retirement, plus 401k, plus insurance. Well, they're paying them $2 a day in India.
I know. I'm like, my mind's already working numbers, and I'm like, so what's the cost of living there?
Oh, it's
Uh,
nothing. But
right.
you should, there's a documentary, and it almost made me want to quit my industry
Yeah.
because the people, when I say it was a row of homes, call it that,
Yeah.
uh, four walls, a door opening, all concrete, no windows, concrete. And no kitchen, no
Mhm.
bathroom, no sink, no plumbing. I mean, it was a cell with no doors. And that's where the people that work in our factories live.
Yeah. And then yeah, see, that's kind of been some of my holdup too.
Yeah.
With looking, and I mean, price wise, that's the best option. China's a lot of the places in China's where we've been looking.
China's
But
much better. I hate to say it.
yeah,
Bangladesh is, we won't
right,
even get stuff made in Bangladesh.
right.
Like, it's that bad.
And that's so my long term goal on down the line, whenever that works out, is I want to kind of tie everything together once I retire, and I want to build some schools in some third world countries.
Sure.
Just because there's just such a lack of education in a lot of those places. And I've taught a lot of those kids over the years. And so hearing their stories, especially the last couple of years, because then I know what to ask now. and hearing um, that most of the girls in some of these places don't go to school past like fifth grade.
Not even
You know,
close.
it's like I would really like to put some places in, some of those locations. Because like you said, I mean, just concrete, and that's if they even have that for a school.
And that uh, we'd have to get rid of the EPA
Yeah.
because when did manufacturing leave the United States? Do you remember about time frame wise?
Mm,
70s, early to mid 70s is when a lot of the clothing manufacturers all went overseas. What
okay.
hap- what started in the early
I was
70s?
gonna say, did we ever have a whole lot here?
Everything was made here.
Yeah.
Levi's,
It
Wrangler.
was before my time, though. That was a trick question.
Well, fair enough. I was trying to catch him.
Not much before my time.
But the EPA started in the early 70s. So, what color is cotton when it gets picked? It's white. So, if your blue jeans have to be dipped in blue indigo dye.
Right.
Well, back in the day, once the dye got diluted, they would just get rid of it. Well, what they would do literally was go dig a hole in the back of the factory, out in the dirt in the parking lot, and just
So,
bury it and just
right.
drop it in.
Yeah.
Well, where would that blue dye end up? In your water table.
Yeah.
So EPA comes in the early 70s and they start setting up Superfund sites. And we used to do chemicals.
Super
I mean, the garbage pits that
fun.
now have methane leaking out of them, and they have to cap them and do all this stuff because in the 50s and 40s, we didn't know about it.
Right.
In India, they're still just going out into the back and digging a
That's
hole.
what I mean, when you said that, I'm like, so is they're just willing to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the people around the factories are all getting lesions, cancer,
Sure.
because they're eating the fish that are in the water sources, which they've now polluted with the dyes.
And what else would they do? I
Yeah.
mean,
They've been eating out of that river for
yeah,
millennia.
because I mean, either you stop making products, right?
Yep.
Or I mean, where else would you put it?
Right.
Yeah, wow, yeah.
Start their own EPA. That's why I always joke when people tell me, "Oh, we got climate change and this," I'm like, "You go to India, you change India and China before you ever mess with us, because that's 3 billion people out of the seven,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
have no regulations.
Hmm.
And China doesn't care what you say about them. They're a communist country.
Right. Right.
They literally,
I don't foresee it changing.
well, that's why we don't get into politics, because I'm like,
Oh, yeah, that's
just stupid. It's like,
why I bite my tongue.
but yet we all want to be in business. I love the fact that you're an entrepreneur. I mean, that's
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of new. It's funny. My parents have always, owned a business, but growing up, um, I could have learned the business some, at least the management part of it, but I wasn't interested because I saw my dad struggle. I saw everything that it entails. It can be
painful.
really great, but it also can be, really, really bad at times. And so even living that growing up, we were up and down, and we appreciate everything because of that too, though, because we were very modest and frugal. And so, but at the same time, I was like, I just want a salary job. I just want to go to work. I just want to make my money and I want to go home. And I've done that for many, many, many years. I mean, even the film world, which there was a time that, might not have been taxed, but I still could count on that money coming in.
Yeah.
But the older I get, and I am very creative. I've always been a writer, but the older I get, I'm trying to be creative in other aspects as well. And also seeing that the money's not always in a salary job. It's kind of changed my thinking. So I think that's why I can't let go of that base. And I'm a single mother,
Yeah.
got the two kids, and so I have to kind of have that stability. But then doing these other things on the side has been really good for us, really good for me.
I get that. I mean, people, if they hear kind of what sales reps make, they're like, "Oh, I'd do that. Oh, well, you could do it." Because there's days when you get zero.
Yeah,
I went to Maui and my store decided to call in sick.
right.
How much did that cost me?
Yeah,
I'm out $700 between the island hopper, the car rental, and the hotel that I had to prepay. And she called in sick.
yeah.
So I made no money.
Yeah, that's hard. It's tough. And you know, it's just one of those things that I think we take for granted sometimes in the education system. If we're sick and we call into work, we still get paid.
Yeah.
And in so many locations and so many different areas, you don't. And so I think we take that for granted sometimes. I know I don't
Right.
because we can't do that a lot. We have a certain, allotted days. We get like 10 days a year.
I haven't
Um,
called in sick in 26 years.
wow. Wow. Have you had to call in sick though? Do you make your own hours?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
but I don't get paid.
That's
That's what
true.
I'm saying. Like you said, I can take all the sick days I want. It's called not working.
Right? Yeah, so I mean, I like having that, but I've had a lot of people ask me, when are you going to just do, your
Whatever. Yeah.
profit and other things? And honestly, I mean, when I retire.
Yeah.
So I do hope to retire a little early, not quite at the 30 years, but I just kind of would like to have that base.
Yeah.
Might not be a lot of retirement. Hopefully, it's enough to pay a mortgage payment and then, be able to be more creative, have more time to do the other things.
Yeah. Well, and then you'll be shocked when your kids move out how much time you have.
I would say so. And that's one of the things you ask at the beginning, like, when's it Larissa time? And in my mind, it's like maybe when the kids are gone,
Yeah.
which I do take time for myself. And there are things I love to do. I love going to the lake. Most of the time, the kids go with me, but sometimes I go by myself. And I love concerts.
Yeah.
So uh, now I do take my kids sometimes. My little one loves concerts, but most of the time, concerts is a me thing. So
I
it
hear you.
just
I didn't go to concerts at all when my kids were, we just didn't go. It was like it was a school night or whatever. It's like too expensive, blah, 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 babysitter, blah, blah, blah. It's not worth it.
I didn't either until a couple years ago.
Now
And
I just go.
yeah, now that I have, I'm like, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I can get a babysitter for them for one night since they've got school the next day, and I will go. So,
I hear you. I now,
yeah,
now I remember when they first were like both in college, and I was like, there's no noise in the house.
yeah, it's eerie. It's eerie, and my kids
Yeah.
are very rarely both not here.
What are we
So,
doing this weekend? Whatever we want.
yeah, it's abnormally quiet.
What? Hey, do you want to go to dinner tonight? Yeah, I don't feel like cooking. Okay.
Yeah, I kind of do that anyway, but
Yeah.
we kind of just eat whatever. It's usually last minute, but yeah, it'll be different, I think. And I have a friend that's she's a professor in South Carolina. I think she's actually over like dean of the department that she works for now. But she and I had a conversation the other day, and she's about to retire, and her kids have been grown for a long time. And she asked me about my hours working because I do work too many hours. I've tried to cut back, but it's hard. I'm learning to say no. But she even said, and it was kind of eye-opening for me. It's one of those things but for somebody else to
Yeah.
say it, it's like, oh. But she said some of those things, these ideas you have. I mean, here I was just throwing everything at her because I've got so many ideas. And she was like, you will have a lot of time for that when your kids are out of the house. She was like, so some of that, if you feel overwhelmed now, just kind of, not necessarily put it on the back burner, but you can
Right.
dabble in it, but just know you can really spend more time on that later. And so it actually took a load off, of like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't have to do that right now. I can enjoy more of this time while they're little because I don't want to miss that either.
Yeah. I mean, I don't regret anything. I mean, I coached the ASO soccer, and I didn't fish. I stopped golfing. I stopped, you
Yeah.
stop doing a lot of stuff because we got soccer practice this weekend. We got lacrosse tournament down in Orange County. We got a soccer tournament out in Riverside County.
Mhm.
You kind of lose yourself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When my oldest was doing theater, I mean, those plays,
Yeah.
that schedule was brutal.
And that's it. My younger daughter got pushed up to a club team in soccer.
Hmm.
And then I asked my older daughter's friend who was in club her whole life and actually went pro, made
Nice.
a women's pro soccer player. But I asked her, I said, what weekends are you home? And she goes, or no, I said, how often are you on the road? She goes, it'd be easier if I told you when I'd be home.
Yeah. That's kind of how we are in a way right now.
I'm like, oh my God. She was 15 maybe at the time, 14. And she could tell me the weekend she was going to be home, not when she's gone.
Exactly. And I'm trying to slow down our lives in some ways. And my youngest has not quite figured out what her avenue is. She's dabbled, soccer,
Oh,
basketball, gymnastics, dance. We've kind of been all over the place, but sometimes she'll throw something out like, competition cheerleading or competition dance. And I was a cheerleader. And so, part of me is like, oh, yeah, let's do that. And then I'm like, I mean, they literally are gone every single weekend. And the money aspect of it.
I'm saying cheerleading's not cheap either.
Oh, it's so
Cross was
expensive,
so much cheaper. I can just tell you firsthand.
right? I mean, yeah, because you also have all the stuff that's entailed with the costumes, their outfits, their
Yeah.
makeup, their
Yeah.
the fees for every competition has a fee, and then the traveling,
Yeah.
you know.
Hotels,
Uh,
food, everything.
yeah, all the
Babysitters.
travel.
Yeah.
So it's just so then I kind of just sit back and I've been letting her kind of lead that. And so then she stops mentioning it and I'm like, okay, she doesn't want to do it that much
Yeah.
then.
I tell you, my oldest, we got into lacrosse by accident because she wanted to be a cheerleader. She was a cheerleader seventh and eighth grade. Ninth grade, going into high school, she wanted to be on the freshman team. The freshman cheerleading team coach quit,
Okay.
and they didn't have one. They weren't planning on bringing one in. So no freshman, no JV. So they were going to varsity, and they already had a varsity team. So
Right.
they were going to bring in a freshman.
Right.
So she's like, "Well, I can't be a cheerleader. So what else can I do?" And I go,
Yeah.
"I don't know." So she picked cross country
Yeah.
for one day.
Okay, that's funny. That would be my oldest.
She
That would be
comes
my
home. She goes, "All I did was run." I go,
oldest.
"Yeah, it's cross country."
Yeah, we did cross country one year with my oldest.
She's like, "That ain't
Was
for me."
finding shortcuts in the races. Okay, so because I knew she didn't love to run, but she wanted to sign up and I let her, but my rule's always been you don't quit.
Yeah.
So once you sign up for something, you can't quit. And the first race or two, she kind of finished on up there. And I was like,
Wow.
she hates to run. So I'm like, okay, I'm impressed. By the third race, she was like, well, yeah, I just cut down those little side trails. Like, I guess they call them, what do they call the rabbits or the people that help? And they just kind of go along from side to side to make sure everybody's okay. I don't know. She followed one of them. And I guess it goes from like one part of the trail, not track, to the other side.
Yeah.
So she was cheating. I was like, you didn't even run the whole thing. Like
Awesome.
you can't do that.
Love that.
So, but she finished them. She didn't do as well, of course, the rest of them because I made her run the whole thing. But she never did that again. She was like, I will never sign up again.
Yeah, yeah. So like I said, she literally did one day and they only did probably a 5 mile
Yeah,
run, but that's all they did. And I'm like,
she was
yeah.
bored too. She
So,
was
so,
like,
so she ended up joining lacrosse. That's
that's that's
yeah.
awesome. At least she found something.
Yeah, yeah. She had played in college and all that. She did really well, but
Wow, that's nice.
yeah,
Yeah, so that might be something mine does. My little one's also done that, but it was just like a little camp.
yeah.
Um, they don't have anything really for her age group, but we do have a high school team. They just don't have it big in middle school or anything here yet.
That's
Uh,
okay
so,
though.
but they do have little camps, and she has done it before, and she did enjoy it. So we'll see.
The problem too is my oldest was really small, so she was a flyer, and that's why they liked her. I mean, she's 5 foot tall now, 108
Oh
pounds,
wow,
105 pounds.
my oldest is 5'8".
Yeah, well, the younger one's 5'6".
Okay.
So there's a 6 inch disparity.
Wow.
The younger
Wow.
one looks older. Anyways, so she was a flyer, and she goes, "I don't like the fly." I go, "Yeah, but you can't be a base because you're too short."
Right.
And they want her to fly, and those are the girls that got dropped all the time.
Right.
And
Yeah,
she,
you couldn't have one base here and one here.
yeah,
It just
but the
worked.
flyers are the ones that go, "Oops, we dropped you. Sorry."
Yeah.
So
I was a flyer, so but I love cheerleading.
yeah,
But neither one of mine so far have wanted to cheer. So
yeah,
yeah, my
okay,
youngest got bored. We actually put her on a cheerleading team because she was talking about the competition stuff,
yeah,
and so they put her on the elementary team. It was more like a middle school team, and she was elementary, but they let her, cheer with them because she was tiny. So I think they thought she would be a good flyer since she was little. She went to one practice, and I did ask the coach, was a friend of mine. I texted her afterwards before I'd even picked, Berkeley up, my youngest, and I said, "How'd it go?" I was so excited. I'm like, living vicariously through my kid, trying to. And she said, well, she got bored about an hour in and went and sat down, started reading a book. She was in third grade. And she said she walked over to her and said, what are you doing? And she was like, well, it's just way more boring than I thought it would be. So I'm going to take a break and read.
The educator in you had to be like, yes,
Right. I mean, and this is also my kid that was struggled with dyslexia for
right.
so long. And so the fact that she even had a book and wanted to read, yes, I was like, Mom win. But
But
then
the
the
cheer
cheerleader
mom and you went,
it
oh,
was like, oh, I was like deflated. But I did not make her do it after that because I was like, this is first practice. And if we are bored already, like, we're not going to put all that time and effort into it
I,
and do that to the coach.
I still, my younger daughter played drums in middle school, and and then she wanted to do the band in high school, and I was like, okay, well, what's their schedule? Oh, it was like 6 in the morning.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, oh, fuck no, not happening.
You don't drive yet, so
I'm
no.
like, how are you going to get there? Because I'm not waking up at 5 to
Yeah.
drop you off at band practice. It's not happening. But they had
Yeah.
to do that because the football team had to go on, so they had to use the field and all that. I'm like, oh no, no, no.
That's early. Yeah.
You need to
Uh,
pick something else, honey.
we had our high school has a swim team, and my oldest has always loved to swim. And kind of same thing. She danced, but then she didn't make it on the dance team her freshman year. So she was like, "Well, what do I do?" Because that's all she's done her whole life is theater and dance. And so we were like, I don't know, like you need to do something. So she was going to do swim, but they meet at 5 a.m. 5 a.m. They swim from 5 to 6 or 5 to 6:30, and then they have to get out and shower and everything since they've been swimming so that they're ready for school right after 7. And same thing, but I'm also in education, and I was like, I can't physically take you at 5 in the morning, and
Or
unless
do
you're
I
going to
want to?
stay there, yeah. That was the biggest thing. But she actually had the band director reach out to her and ask if she would be the majorette because he had heard from a friend of his that she twirled, and
Okay.
not a lot of kids do that anymore.
Yeah.
But she's been doing it since she was little because her grandmother was a majorette, so she always taught her. And she does the UT camps in Knoxville several times a year. So he asked her to do that, and she's done that for the last 3 years. And
Oh,
they have an amazing marching band. I mean, they're phenomenal. Like, I'm very impressed. And she's the only majorette. And so, but she loves it. She makes up a lot of her own routines and
as I say, you didn't have to listen to her squeal on a saxophone or a flute or
she did flute or some sort of instrument for 1 year. And
my
I was,
daughter did. She did a saxophone for 1 year. I was like,
yeah,
no.
no more. I think it was like clarinet or something, but yeah, same.
Then we got the drum set, but then we just got our practice pad, which
Oh,
doesn't
yeah,
make any noise. It's a,
that's perfect.
like,
Yeah.
go with that.
Well, I didn't have to worry about it. I thought I was going to have to because it was very annoying listening to her, like, practice. But this was her seventh grade year. And, but okay, so this is like being an educator. I didn't work at this school, but I was called in for a parent meeting. So, I'm like, they know who I am. I'd worked with a lot of them in the past, even. So I go into this meeting and everybody's very serious. And I'm like, oh, goodness, because this is my oldest and there's just no telling what she's done. And so the band director was there and he was like, well, I need to talk to you about her video. I guess they had to turn in videos ever so often of them playing certain songs. So they
Hmm.
would video record it and send it to him. And I said, okay, well, he shows me the video and she's playing and it actually sounded really good. So I was like, okay, I don't know what the problem is. He said, and this is me like trying not to laugh, right? Because everybody's being very serious. And he said, well, she was playing, or pretending to play, but she had somebody else sitting at her feet playing the song. And he said he knew because, I mean, I'm not a musician.
Yeah,
But he knew like where her fingers were supposed to be
right.
and but they never were. Like, so he knew, even though she was pretending,
Yeah, yeah.
not in the right place, she wasn't making like the right motion. So she had somebody else playing all the songs like at her feet and then recording it and sending it in. And so she was in trouble, and I could tell they were very upset.
That's a
So
good one though.
I mean, that's her thinking outside the box.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
I try not to laugh because, they were very mad. And I was like, well, she will be in trouble for this. I will talk to her at home. I understand she gets a bad grade for the assignment. And then when I left, I was like,
That's pretty dope, though. I like that.
yeah, she didn't get grounded. She had a talking to. And I said, and we're not going to do this in the future. Like, you're not going to sign up for band next year.
Yeah,
And you're not taking the
we're
time to learn
done. You,
stuff. Yeah,
you,
we're done. So that took care of that.
well, hey, I just looked at the clock and I got to let you get going.
Yep, got kids to pick up. We got to keep that schedule rolling.
Well, I
Um,
appreciate I appreciate the time. What's the best way for my listeners to kind of, if they wanted to reach out to you and have more questions, how do they do that?
the best way is probably email. I also have Instagram that I check quite a bit. I have my regular Instagram, and then I also have one for the nonprofit.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, so do you want me to share that now, or do you want to
Whatever
just?
you want to share.
So our nonprofit is Snug as a Bug Foundation.
Okay.
So even on Instagram, that's the user handle, Snug as a Bug Foundation. And then mine on Instagram is TN Professor Life, with underscores. So TN underscore Professor underscore Life. That's a good way to get a hold of me. And then my email, I'll also give you that. So it's my first and last name, LARISSA RECTOR, and the number two at gmail.com.
Okay.
And so that's also listed on the Snug as a Bug Instagram and online if you go to snugasabugfoundation.org.
That'd be
All that
interesting if you
there too.
could. I don't mean this in a business way, but franchise the Suckers a Bug so it could be in different areas. Where.
I would love that, and that's my goal. We've started locally, and
Yeah.
then we do a lot of deliveries to like Vanderbilt Children's in
Okay.
Nashville, and then we go to Children's in Knoxville a lot. So just different hospitals in different areas. But we actually have even started like over Christmas. We had a lot of extra books. We had like I don't know, maybe 200 extra books, and we only do new books and new pajamas. And so I was like looking for other avenues to help. So we actually have a couple different organizations, like in our community, even that just help kids,
Okay.
kind of like even like a big brother, big sister kind of thing. But we just started donating books to some of those organizations
That's a good
as
one.
well. So, I mean, very recently it's been not just hospitals, but I would really like to get in some other states as well.
Well, I like the Knoxville one because that's where my grandbaby was just at the
There
end.
you go.
She's
Maybe
in
they'll
the
benefit
NICU there for
somehow.
3 days. So,
Yeah, yeah, that'd be nice.
well, all right. So I will make sure on my website to include all the links and all that for your social media and
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, anything they want to reach out for, questions or anything we can do to help.
yeah.
uh, I'd also love to do that. So thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, it was
I
great
enjoy your
talking.
podcast, so I like being on this side of it.
Me too. Thanks,
So
Larissa.
yeah, I
Talk to you soon.
appreciate it.